Hey everyone, this is the mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you are all doing well. For today's conversation, I wanted to share my thoughts about why I believe that Black women should stop telling Black men that they don't need them. And usually, women say that they don't need a man because a man's presence is somehow detrimental to her mentally, emotionally, physically, and even financially, right? And when a man hears a woman say, I don't need a man, they tend to get triggered because it means that this woman has her guard up. And if she has her guard up, then it's harder for her to be manipulated, exploited, and taken advantage of. So suppose you're living with your boyfriend or your husband and your child, and your husband refuses to help out around the house, or he does so sporadically. You have to tell him everything like a child. And then at some point when you're frustrated, you say you don't need him. You'll do it by yourself. You'll do it on your own, right? Just because you say you don't need him, it does not mean that he ceases to exist. He doesn't disappear like a ghost. He's still in your environment, right? He will still eat. He will still wear clothes. He will still sleep in the house. He'll take up space. So he doesn't disappear because you say you don't need him. When you tell a man that you don't need him, you absolve him of any responsibility as a human being, as a man, and as a father. His relationship to you should have nothing to do with his identity and his responsibilities as an autonomous human being. But a lot of these men don't really want to do anything in relationships anyway. They're very resistant to actually putting in effort to maintain a relationship with a woman. So when you tell them you don't need them, you're giving them an easy way out, because now they'll expect you to pick up after them. They'll expect you to clean up their messes, either literally or figuratively. And they'll blame you for not being able to do 5 jobs perfectly when they're not even holding themselves accountable for one job. You're not even holding them accountable for one job because you say you don't need them, right? So these men will blame you for not doing your job as a mother. They will blame you for not doing their job as a father. And they will blame you for your own victimization at their hands. Because when you say you don't need them, in their minds, it justifies them not fulfilling their social contract. And what is their social contract? Their social contract as men is to not burn down the village with drugs and abuse and violence and kidnapping and molestation. Just because you don't have sexual access to the woman does not give you the right to destroy the world that your children are living in. And if you don't have children, you still have responsibilities as a human being and as a man to protect the community and the children within the community. Now, both men and women are responsible for protecting the babies. But when you tell men you don't need them, all of the burden is on you. It's a verbal contract. So when things fall apart and the community is in shambles because you dropped one of the 5 balls that they threw at you, these men will use your own words against you to justify not fulfilling their individual responsibility to maintain social order. If you ask women who cohabitate with men, either as spouses or girlfriends, you ask them about the division of labor within the home and in the relationship. Most women do most of the emotional labor, the physical labor, and increasingly the financial labor. These men will watch their wives and girlfriends take on second jobs, cook, clean, wash the kids, while they get to sit back and do whatever they feel like doing, and still expecting sex on demand. This is not all men, but this is a significant percentage of men. So in your mind, logically, if you're doing every damn thing by yourself, you don't really need them, technically, right? Because these men have weaponized their incompetence. They've intentionally made themselves useless. But you cannot tell them out loud that you don't need them because it gives them permission to slack off. Now you're acknowledging how useless they are, right? I'm not saying all men, the ones who do this, right? There are some fathers who are amazing. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the ones who don't do shit and expect everything in return, okay? But when you tell a man that you don't need him, you're firing him from a job, but he's still getting paid. How is he getting paid? Well, he's getting paid by having all the freedom in the world to do whatever he wants to do and to put it on your back while having none of the responsibility as a man and an adult, right? So he doesn't have a responsibility to his children, to his community, to his brethren, to his family. He doesn't have any responsibilities. And outside of going to prison, just because he doesn't have any responsibilities doesn't mean that he doesn't have an influence on his environment. He's still interacting with the members of the community, the children, the men, and the women. So if you say you don't need him, he doesn't need to fulfill his role as a man in any capacity anywhere else. Because a lot of men, they're validated by their sexual access to women. If they don't have that, then they feel like they don't really have any obligations to fulfill their social contract by maintaining social order. If you're in a relationship with a man, a marriage, or you're dating, and you tell him you don't need them, that is like you asking your man if he's cheating. You know he's cheating and you don't go anywhere. Now he knows that you know and you ain't going anywhere anyway, and so why should he stop? Just like you saying, I don't need you. He knows that you know he ain't gonna do anything and you're still with him anyway. So you don't really need these men technically, but if you tell them that you don't need them, they'll feel less guilty about being lazy and exploitative. If you tell them you don't need them, they'll blame you for being too tired, too irritable, frustrated, and depressed, because not only are you taking care of all your responsibilities with no help, you're also picking up the slack for them. They've checked out. So even though they see you doing all the work they refuse to do because they don't want to and they don't feel like it, they don't understand why you're tired, why you're upset, why you don't want to talk, and why you tell them you don't need them. In their minds, they don't really care about making your life easier because they want to live life on easy mode just like they say you do. So it's easy for them to watch you struggle, just like it's easy for them to blame you for what they're doing to the community, what they are doing to the community by way of selling drugs, forming gangs, burning down the village, molesting women and children and men and boys. They'll blame you for pregnancy. They'll blame you for abortion. They'll blame you for other men molesting your children, why the community isn't safe, and why mental illness among women is on the rise. They are blaming you for everything because they're holding you to your word, not because they respect you or value you, but because they want the easy way out. A lot of these men have Peter Pan syndrome. Not only do they suffer from arrested development, but they also expect you to mother them. They watch their mothers do everything and expect you to do the same. When you tell them you don't need them, they lose their identity because your attention and your sexual access validates these men. And it doesn't validate them because they value you as a human being. They are validated because you allow them to exploit you and take advantage of you, which in their mind means that you've submitted to them. And if you've submitted to them, you have given them power and respect that they have not earned. And because they have not earned this power, they will abuse it because they know their power comes from your ignorance, your naivete, and your desperation. In other words, they can only maintain their power and control over you as long as you are ignorant, naive, and desperate. And how do these men keep you ignorant, naive, and desperate? Through physical, mental, emotional, verbal, sexual, and sometimes even spiritual abuse. These men will intentionally deprive you of the things that you ask for and that you need to maintain power and leverage, which is why you will ultimately reject them and tell them you don't need them anyway because they weren't giving you anything anyway. But again, when you say it out loud, they feel justified in not only absolving themselves of their responsibilities as a boyfriend or husband, they damn near lose their masculinity and their humanity. Unless these men have another victim as a backup, right? Man, woman, or child. These men lose their sense of self-worth and they crash out because they feel powerless against someone whose ignorance and subservience they were using to validate themselves. When you reject these men, you're reflecting their worthlessness and impotence back to them to the point where they don't know how to live in a civilized society. So now we all have to suffer. Our babies are no longer safe around these men. We can't invite them into our homes. We can't even have safe communities. No safe schools, no safe parks, no safe third places. Everywhere is a damn war zone because these foolish men are at war with themselves, but they're too cowardly, too selfish, too arrogant, and too ignorant to do the hard work of healing their trauma and developing an identity that's not based on sex, manipulation, destruction, subjugation, oppression, recklessness, and deception. So while it is very tempting and even satisfying to tell a man you don't need him and literally mean it because you can't handle things on your own, right? You can still raise your children on your own. You can go to work and there's childcare, there's maid services or whatever. You can do it technically on your own, but these men still have responsibilities as men outside of your relationship, outside of even being a father. They still have to be men in society. So when you say you don't need them, they take it as they don't have any responsibilities to maintain social order. They can do whatever they want to do. They can burn the village down, poison it, exploit it, whatever, and then blame you for it. And they always say, well, you said you don't need a man. You said you don't need a man. So just because I say I don't need a man in my relationship with you in a one-on-one partnership, that means that society doesn't need you to show up as men to protect the communities and keep everything safe and to keep things in order, women cannot do the work inside the house and outside the house simultaneously. The state of the village or the community is a reflection of the state of our homes. If the community is in shambles and the village is in shambles, that means it's because our homes have been destroyed by many different factors. A lot of women are trying to do their best in these situations, and I'm not saying all men are bad. I'm not saying all men are bad. I'm not saying every man is useless. I'm not saying that. But there are lots of situations where women are tempted to tell their boyfriends who aren't doing anything, I don't need you. You do need them. You need them to step into their roles as men, not just as a human dildo and, some company. No, these men have a responsibility to, again, make sure the community is safe so that the home is safe. If the community is in shambles, the home is in danger. If the home is destroyed, then the community is also in danger. So a lot of Black communities are in disrepair. Nobody really has a role anymore, right? And women get triggered when they talk about roles, and people get triggered when we talk about roles. Roles are not a bad thing. There are roles in the animal kingdom. And I always mention ants because ants are my favorite insect. Everybody has a role to fulfill. When you have a role, life is a little easier because now you can play your role to the best of your ability. Your role as women is not to do the man's job. It's not to say, I don't need a man. That's not your role. Your role is to create beautiful, safe homes for yourselves and your children. If you don't have any children, for yourselves and other women, right? For refuge. We need to have places of refuge in our communities, and we don't have that. So the woman's role is to create refuge within the home. This is the 4th house. The man's role is to create refuge outside the home, the 10th house in astrology. If the 10th house is burning down, the 4th house is in danger. If the 4th house is burning down, the 10th house is in danger. So both the home and the community has to be in a state of peace, symbiosis, nurturing, etc. The state of the community is a reflection of what's going on with these men. So whatever happens outside of the home is primarily the responsibility of the men in the community. What happens inside the home is primarily the responsibility of the women in the community, period. People may have issues with that. I don't care really. That's how I see it. But for the most part, if the men were to take care of their job outside the home, meaning making sure the streets are clean, making sure there are no gangs and no rapists and no pimps and no murderers running around here, drug dealers, if they were to do that, then a woman's job will be easier. So even if you're not in the home, right, as a man, and you're not, helping out with the housework, you're still responsible for making sure that other men don't burn down the village that you live in, your children live in, the mother of your children live in. Like, it's counterproductive. It is counterintuitive and it's self-destructive to go out here and act like, well, just because I can't have sex with this woman anymore, fuck the whole world, forget the community. Let me be out here just exploiting people, taking advantage of people, doing drugs, committing crime. That's not fair. That is not fair. So yeah, women, just to close it out, again, do not tell these men that you don't need them. Not because you're weak and you can't handle things by yourself. That's not the reality. You more than likely can handle things on your own for the most part. In a Western technological society where there's like a lot of support, social support, you can do it technically. But the state of your villages and your quality of life is also influenced and impacted by what's going on with these men, by their mental state, right? And by them not having any role or fulfilling their roles, period. I'm not saying slack off and don't do anything for yourself and rely too heavily on these men. I'm saying that you have to hold these men accountable by way of expecting things of them. Expect them to step up. Expect them to keep the community safe. Expect them not to sell drugs to the men, women, and children in the community. Don't reward those men with sex either. The men who are burning down the village should not have sexual access to anybody within the village. But the fact that these men are being rewarded not only for being destructive and reckless and irresponsible, they're being rewarded for giving you all of their work. They're giving you all the work within the home and outside of the home. It makes them feel like they're doing the right thing. So a lot of the issues we have in our community is not just because of male waywardness and male dysfunction. It's also because a lot of women have rewarded these dysfunctional men with their bodies, with their conversation, with their loyalty. You have women who are out here helping men to destroy other women and children. So you're also a part of the problem, right? Black men and women have to take responsibility for the condition of the community. But again, just to close it out, stop telling them you don't need them. Hold them accountable as a collective for making sure that your streets are safe, your schools are safe, the stores are safe, the parks are safe, that their children their children and even themselves can walk outside without having to be afraid for their safety. Black women, you also have a responsibility to choose better men. I'm not saying that if you choose a better guy, then that the relationship will be foolproof. No, I'm not talking about the sleeper cell men who pretend to be one thing and then, no, I'm not talking about them. The ones who are like blatantly, obviously, overtly, deliberately destroying the communities, the drug dealers, the gang members, stay away from them. You know what it is already with them, and you're rewarding them with time, energy, resources, sexual access, attention. I'm not saying that ex-cons don't deserve love and they don't deserve redemption. I'm not saying that. But you don't deserve love and redemption while you're out here burning the village down. If you learned the error of your ways and you're trying to take corrective action to help heal the community, then, okay, I wouldn't be upset if a woman gave you an opportunity. But if you're out here actively, if you're active in the streets, selling drugs, killing people, molesting women, right, it's all this other shit. If you're active out here, you don't deserve anything but contempt and ostracization, period. You're making everybody's job harder. You're making everybody's job harder. The thugs and miscreants and misfits are making everybody's life more difficult. So at the very least, women, what we can do is to starve them out. Don't reward them with anything. Yes, a lot of them are gay and don't like women anyway. That's fine. But keep them away from you. And men, if you're seeing men doing the wrong thing, hold them accountable. Yes, it is dangerous to hold people who are dysfunctional and mentally ill accountable. It is dangerous, right? But men need to be socialized into accepting that danger. Because if you're scared of these dysfunctional gang members, right? These drug dealers, these social misfits, how the hell are we supposed to have a safe community if you're scared of them too? How do you think these children feel around these men? If you're scared of them, the kids are scared of them too. So as a man, as a part of your social contract, your job is to make the children feel safe as well, outside of the home. And mommy can help the kids feel safe within the home by not bringing the thugs and the goons and the drug dealers within the home. So you take care of the outside and she'll take care of the inside, right? Like Avon Barksdale said, this play works on the outside, that play works on the inside. We're not having an inside-outside conversation. It's all the Black woman is responsible for the inside of the house and the outside of the house. She's blamed for what's happening in the home and outside the home. And the men get to do what? To burn everything down and say, well, she said she don't need me anyway, so let me just do me and blame her for the fallout. Blame her for my lack of accountability and my lack of responsibility and my dysfunctional behavior. It's her fault. No. This is why so many Black women in particular are so angry with Black men. A lot of us are so furious with Black men. Furious. It's almost like it's like rage, it's contempt, it's disgust, it's everything because you have not done your job. These women have gone to school. They're trying to improve their lives and themselves and their children. They're doing the best they can in the circumstances they've been given. And you're out here making it harder for them to provide you, themselves, and their children with a better life. Everybody's on their job but you. So of course you're going to get the most hate because you're not doing your job. Period. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.